I'm Joe LaMonaco. That is Ruth Rowe Campbell. Hello, Miss Ruth.
Hello, Joe.
And this is the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. And today we are going to... Miss Ruth and I started talking about this like an hour ago before we actually got here for the show. Because she decided to bring us a topic here, which I've heard of. I didn't know what it was. I still don't understand 100% what it is. And we're going to be talking about the story behind America's largest real estate marketplace. We're talking real estate here, and we're talking about three little letters. It's called MLS. If you have casually scrolled through a listing online because you were curious about what the inside of a house looked like, I'm guilty. I do it all the time. If you've sold a house yourself or bought a house, if you've seen a sign in someone's front yard and has those three letters, MLS, you might be wondering what they stand for. In this episode of the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour, we are going to do our best to try to unpack a few things, because this is an onion that gets crazier the deeper you peel it. It really is. I thought this was going to be a pretty straightforward topic, Miss Ruth, but you have brought us something which we may have to take a few months to unpack.
I don't think that.
You know what? To truly do it justice, I think we really need to take our time with this. So let's get right into it.
Okay, here we go.
MLS stands for what?
Multiple Listing Service.
Okay, let's go all the way in the Wayback Machine, okay? I would suspect, everything has to have an origin story. This has an origin story. How far back does it go?
Way back to the 1800s.
Okay.
We're talking like after the Civil War.
Okay, so mid to late 1800s is where this whole started.
Correct.
So we are going into the Wayback Machine to your great-great-grandfather's era.
In a smoke-filled room.
Isn't that the way it always is? All right. Give us the elevator pitch about how this whole thing got started and what we know as best we can about who are the ones in that smoke-filled room that got us started.
It started in a very innocent way for really the benefit of the consumer. Okay? Because the consumer being the seller, the real estate seller, brokers got together in that room and they said, hey guys, which was all male at that time. They didn't let women in real estate for decades. Okay,
of course it was.
Shut my mouth. Guys got together and they said, this whole thing is going to be a lot easier if we cooperate with each other instead of competing with each other. So when Joe gets a listing, he's going to allow any broker in the room to show it and bring their buyer in, and potentially buyers will compete for a purchase.
So
good idea.
This essentially starts, if you ever wondered how the real estate marketplace, maybe this is the seed, the nugget.
Yes.
Where things, as we experience them today, and we're going to talk more about how technology plays a part and how this all expanded as we go through this show. But this is really the nugget of where this buyer competition, as we kind of understand it today, really got its start.
Exactly right. It is seller representation. That's what it started as. And when buyers compete, that's a good thing for sellers. It's also a good thing for the real estate brokers because they have a protected item, which is their listing.
Okay.
Their listing, exclusive right to sell listing. And all the brokers compete to buy it.
Okay.
To earn that money. And of course, there was some money changing hands here. So we'll pay you X amount of money if you bring in a buyer and that buyer is successful and they close.
Okay. So here's your first truth from Ruth in this episode. The MLS was never created so that brokers could compete against each other in secret.
That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
You really, the MLS was created to essentially benefit sellers to get a piece of property in front of as many potential buyers as possible. This is where it all starts. When we talk about how Miss Ruth does her business today with Digging for Deals and the auction platform and how this all comes in, it's about getting the property in front of as many people as possible to find the right buyer to sell that property to the maximum benefit of the seller.
Exactly. And when buyers compete, the seller is Best served.
So back in the day, I wonder how the communication had to work and who kept the ledgers and who kind of wrote everything down. I mean, we think about how information changes hands in the modern era, and it's very easy to get on your phone or a computer and look anywhere in the world for something. But at this time in the 1800s, was it, I wonder if it was all regional? Did they talk to each other across the colonies or the states, or by that point we're done with colonies, but across the states to make sure that everybody knew about what everyone else was doing, or if it was kind of regionally based?
It was always regionally based. Okay, all the real estate people knew each other, and when a buyer came from another location, God forbid, they had to talk. They had to find a real estate broker that could help give them access to that listing. Obviously. All right. Control. It was all controlled. It was all regional, and this was how real estate worked. It was a good thing.
This was a private enterprise. This is not a government agency. It never started as a government agency. It was never started as a business, like we think of Zillow's and Realtor.com and Houses.com. So this is a private database, or at it started probably a private ledgers.
Yes.
Owned and operated locally or regionally, governed by who, though? Who do we know that was kind of maintaining this or sort of keeping the records?
Strictly the brokers, the real estate industry, the real estate brokers. New York State calls us licensees. They created something called associations or boards, the Board of Realtors. And they even decided that if you guys have if you have a controversy, you have to come to the board or the association to dispute that controversy. One broker doesn't pay the other broker, okay? But big money involved here.
Okay.
The real estate industry paid for this database. They paid for it. They're still paying for it.
Okay. So you had those within the real estate industry who were sort of running the show, but you had others who were in the real estate business who were paying for the privilege of utilizing that database, which was being kept by others?
The vast majority, all the foot soldiers in real estate,
okay,
all
right.
the agents.
So there's the hierarchy.
There's
That's how we
hierarchy,
see that is.
And at the top of the hierarchy became the National Association of Realtors.
Okay, and that's something you probably heard of. It still exists today.
Of course.
Okay, so this has some long-standing history as far as how real estate transactions actually work from a structural standpoint. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put a pin in this because we're up against a break. We want to talk about how the MLS works. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts. Who's in it? How do the details get in? How do people utilize those things? How did they used to do it? And then we're going to start fast forwarding to how it is impacting the real estate market today. And there's a lot to unpack here. Okay, there's an awful lot. It's 3 little letters that are huge. It's called MLS. And we are talking about that with Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com. And thetruthfromruth.com, where you can find a lot more about this and past Truth from Ruth Radio Hour shows. Back in more on News Radio WHAM 1180 right after this. We are back on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour on News Radio WHAM 1180. I'm Joe LaMonaco. Ruth Rowe Campbell is with me from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com and thetruthfromruth.com. Because in case you want to re-listen to this show or other Truth from Ruth radio hours, they are all in one place with a lot of other great information for you. It's all warehoused at thetruthfromruth.com. Or if you are in the real estate game right now, especially if you are a seller, Ruth is a seller's agent. That is very important. You can reach out right there through the website. All the contact details there at digginfordeals.com if you want to learn about how the auction world works. within real estate. If you've got a piece of property, whether that's a business property, whether that's machinery or equipment on there, whether that is a household, not only the physical structure, but what's inside it, Miss Ruth has resources that are able to help you maximize your return for doing that transaction. I'll find it all at digginfordeals.com, and find this and past episodes at thetruthfromruth.com. All right, we're talking about the MLS. The untold story behind America's largest real estate marketplace. We've talked a little bit about what it is and how it got started, and we were going way back into the 1800s for this. And I would suspect that structurally how it functions hasn't really changed all that much, though technology has been layered on top of it. What the MLS actually does and the information that it warehouses has essentially been pretty consistent over all these years.
Well, I don't know about that, Joe,
Okay.
because when it started out in handwritten ledgers and it went to printed books, which became phone books of information.
Oh, I would imagine it was huge.
Phone books of information. They were just, MLS listings were just little blurbs.
Okay.
There was a point where there was no photographs. Can you imagine no photographs?
Never seeing a property.
Okay, a listing was just a couple little words on a printed book.
Okay. So let's go through some of the bullet points. So it had some property details, I would suspect, but was it merely about the acreage, square footage? Was it fairly
Little bit,
limited?
very basic information. The object, as far as the brokers were concerned, the real estate industry, was to get the consumer in the door.
Okay.
And, in the olden days, as a young realtor at Century 21, if you had 60 agents in the office, you would get 60 phone books. Can you imagine that? 60 phone books
Woof.
delivered to your office, stacked up every week because the information changed constantly.
Can you imagine having to reprint that so often to keep it current?
This is how the world was.
Okay.
Okay.
And at the beginning of your career, pre-internet,
Yes.
you were still utilizing this in your early days in real estate.
Books.
Okay.
Yes, books. The computer came along, the personal computer, and then it went to that wax paper. Remember, everyone remembers wax paper.
Yeah.
But there were no photographs. It was just data entered into a database.
Okay.
And brokers, it was tightly controlled. Brokers cooperated. Here's the rub, Joe. The consumer could not get this information. They didn't know. A sign went up on your neighborhood and your son was looking for a house. So you had to call the broker and the broker had to look up that listing for you. There was no transmittal of information to the public.
Okay.
It was designed to get the public in the door.
Okay. So that's why showing instructions were still included in that early MLS. What do we talk about when we say showing
We used
instructions?
something called telephones. Okay?
Is that the app on my phone I never use?
We used something called telephones, and we would hurry up and we'd call the listing agent. I got to get a buyer in there right away tonight. Can I
do a showing?
Can I do a showing? The listing agent had to call the seller. Okay, but it was a cooperation between brokers, and the public was really basically locked out.
Okay.
Can you imagine that?
So the public didn't have the opportunity to see those details there because part of how it works was compensations offered to cooperating brokers was detailed within the MLS, privy to those who were in the industry, but not to buyers and sellers.
Exactly, and this is part of all the controversy.
Okay,
even
that's going to take us
today.
to modern times.
Okay,
We'll get to that in a minute.
But suppose you were a seller and you were only offering 2% compensation to the buyer's agent. Hang with me here for a minute. And somebody else next door was offering 3%. So who do you think the brokers were going to show the house to? They were going to show the house to the one where they received the best commission.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it makes sense.
And it was their private database, so there was nothing wrong with this. they could do it.
Okay. So I just want to just linger on this for just a little bit. So within the industry, and because this was locked down, it was not available outside of people who are professionals within the industry. That became just sort of the way business was conducted?
Yes, of course. This was all legal and open.
Okay.
And had worked this way for over 100 years. Think about it. We're talking 100 years.
It seems that, I mean, when you can look at it from a historical perspective, and we see how far back this all goes, that it sort of works until it doesn't, and we're going to get to that in our next segment when we show how technology played a massive part about how things started to change and how rapidly they have changed within the MLS.
And the government.
Okay. But right now, see, remember, at this time, the MLS is not a government agency. It wasn't created by the government. It's not run by the government. It was used professionally, still is used professionally, but now we have other parties that are getting involved. So let's just dial it back a little bit here, okay? When it's still just for professionals within the business, why sellers used it?
They want to sell.
It created something, though. It created
competition.
Thousands of independent competitors cooperating to expose one property to the largest audience possible. Where have we heard that before, Miss Ruth?
Ooh, must be the auction industry.
No individual brokerage could match that reach. And it really did was the initial catalyst, I guess, was to benefit sellers, or was it really designed to benefit both sides of the equation, to benefit buyers and sellers? Or was it really more just for those people that were looking to benefit from a transaction?
In a way, it was designed certainly to benefit buyers and sellers, but it was mostly designed to benefit the broker industry. Really.
Okay.
They needed information. They wanted to sell houses. That was their function in life. And if they could sell your house, Joe, they had a buyer. So bring it on.
Okay.
You know,
this consolidation of information, I don't know the names of the people who were in the room at the time, but when you look at what they created for the industry, for the real estate industry, instead of having to, like, all right, if I'm one broker and I'm just going to go to one neighborhood, I'm going to start knocking on doors. You thinking about selling your house? You thinking about selling your house? Instead of that it made the process as streamlined as it could have been, given the fact that there was always a lag in information, that everything had to be printed, that you had to keep throwing away old books and starting with new books to be able to have current information. But it really was something that no one individual broker or team of brokers could have ever duplicated without this.
No, it was an amazing partnership, cooperation. And it worked for literally hundreds of years, 100 years plus, until something happened.
What happened? What did it do to the MLS? And what have been the long-term ramifications of that? And we're not even talking very much long-term. We're talking about a few decades worth. And the playing field keeps changing. You know what it is because it's in your pocket right now. And you've probably gone to one of those sites. I'm guilty of it. As soon as a sign comes up in my neighborhood, I'm immediately on one of those because I'm just curious about it. But what did that do? What did digital technology do to the MLS? The information, who holds it, where money gets transferred, who pays who. See, I told you it was going to be an onion. We are talking about the MLS on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. That's Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at diggingfordeals.com. Did you miss any of this conversation? Want to listen to it again? Go to thetruthfromruth.com. That's where all of Ruth's shows, all of her information is warehoused in one easy-to-find place. If you are in the real estate world, though, or if you're in the collection selling, or you've got a business that you are dispensing of and you've got equipment or whatever, you can utilize an auction platform for that. And you can do that at digginfordeals.com, DIGGIN for deals.com. And you can see what is current up there. You can see how Ruth and her team work over at Diggin' for Deals. And when we come back, speaking of the internet and .coms, how did the internet change everything in the MLS? And we're going to start diving into that topic when we continue on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour next on News Radio WHAM 1180. Welcome back to the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour on News Radio WHAM 1180. I'm Joe LaMonaco with Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com and thetruthfromruth.com. So remember, if you want to catch up on past shows, including this one, you can listen to them again, share them with people that might need this information over at thetruthfromruth.com. We're trying to warehouse everything that we have done for this show, and it's been almost a year and a half that we've been doing this show. So all the episodes are up there. And new ones continue to go. Every month, Miss Ruth will come back. And she'll be with us all throughout the summer, too. She doesn't take a vacation. Miss Ruth is, well, she might go and do some grandma things here and there. But she's going to be around, so we have a lot more information. And we are talking about the MLS, the multiple listing service. You've seen them on real estate, whether you've been involved in it, whether you've seen it on a sign, whether you have gone online to look at real estate listings because you've been curious about what the inside of a house looks like in your neighborhood, and it's just gone on the market and it's being marketed. The internet changed everything. So just to dial things back just a little bit, in case you're just joining us, the multiple listing service was started back in the aftermath of the Civil War in the later part of the 1800s. It was designed to help consolidate information in the real estate world so that properties could be seen, could have exposure to as many buyers as possible through a consolidated effort to be able to maximize return for sellers, to keep information warehoused in one place. It is a private organization. It was not government created. It is not controlled by the United States government. It was printed in book form, originally handwritten in ledger form, and then probably duplicated by hand to be able to be shared with people. Then it wound up getting printed. Miss Ruth said that they would bring phone book size every week. They would wind up bringing in and probably dropping it on the porch with a large thud. But then
the internet.
Digital changed everything.
Yes, our life.
The database switched from being in a printed form to being in a digital form.
And not without a battle.
Okay, so, of course, the internet started as the wild, wild west, and a lot of things got out there. Was the MLS resistant to having this printed proprietary item now being potentially available to other players who may or may not be the ones in a new smoke-filled room?
Exactly. Okay, now, the one word that I would use was membership, and it still is. Mm-hmm. It's a membership organization. Okay. And when you have a private membership organization, guess what? You can invite the people you want.
It's like a country club.
And you can keep the people you don't want out. So the internet comes along, and there are individuals, companies that come in and say, wait a minute, we want all the information that's going into this database, this MLS. Now, it had evolved a little bit. It had some pictures in it. Okay. It was a nice, juicy morsel for these internet, they call themselves internet brokers. And what they've evolved into is Zillow, Redfin. Also, the auction industry didn't have a seat at the table. They weren't a member, okay? So, Department of Justice steps in, and this is the 21st century, 2008, and they say, wait a minute, guys, you get on one side of the room, you're on the other side. We're going to mandate that NAR, the National Association of Realtors, tell all its members across the United States that they have to do something called sharing. We like to share.
Well, you're taught that you should be a good person and share.
And share.
But this is almost, it's over a century of this is how we do business. And then technology came and completely disrupted that model.
Yes.
And players started to get into the business or into the industry that started to say, hey, we want the consumer to have as much information as possible. We're going to disseminate this information as widely as we can. It should benefit you.
And the consumer wanted that. They wanted to sit in the comfort of their living room and look at the neighbor's kitchen and bathroom.
Or to be nosy.
Or whatever.
Sure.
Or search for real estate online. But here's where it gets down and dirty.
This is where it gets tricky.
That auction industry or Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com, okay, might have a different business model than our membership business model.
Okay.
And we don't know if we like that.
So when you mention that, and again, I'm going to way oversimplify this because we have to.
Yes. Please.
Did it come down to money? Did it come down to
Joe
compensation, percentages? Remember, we talked about it earlier when it was written in the book. It was, you're going to do 2% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the buyer's agent, or what have you.
True.
So this was going to then make that information, which was held private and away from buyers and sellers. Now buyers and sellers could see it. That was a huge disruptor.
Wait a minute. Now, we're in the 21st century, like in 2008, and the membership is like, we are not showing that to the public. God forbid.
Yeah.
Okay? It was not until 2024.
Really?
2024. When 2 years ago, folks, when the Department of Justice stepped in and said, okay, guys, you're on one side of the room, somebody else is here. You guys have to scrub the MLS of compensation. Now, the National Association of Realtors in the real estate industry almost...
I would imagine they plotzed completely.
Yes. I mean, that is a big deal.
Okay. So this is the first time, though, and there have been two Department of Justice investigations or cases. One comes into around the time of the real estate crash, so mid to late 20-aughts, so between 2005 2008. That's number one. Then 2 years ago, they've stepped in again. After more than 100 years of how the MLS is operated, it has changed probably dramatically from a compensation standpoint.
Membership only
in the last 20 years.
Yes.
And in the last 2 years,
Yes.
things have changed
Yes.
really dramatically.
And that's the reason I'm doing this radio show.
Okay.
Because people don't know what the MLS is. They don't understand how important it is to sell real estate. You almost have to have it, folks. But it is okay to require disclosure of compensation. It is okay to ask those questions. What am I, I'll pay you thousands of dollars in commissions, but what am I going to receive?
Okay.
How is this going to appear?
We have talked about this in relation to the auction platform and transparency. I mean, this is kind of sort of related, to that as well. This battle that has gone on now, and it's battle through the courts and it's battle through the government, it's not about access. It's not about websites. It's about control. I have to ask this question, and you answer it to the best of your abilities. If you don't know, say you don't know. Do we, as the public, have any ability to know who's at the top of the food chain in the MLS? Like we would know about a board of directors of a publicly traded company.
Well, it's still private.
Okay.
It is still private membership
Only. Okay.
But and keep in mind, I mean, the government is on, steroids regarding the housing industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? It's very important.
Yeah.
It is very, very important because think of all those mortgage lenders.
Oh,
Think of all those tax assessors who need valuation information. That's what this is.
Okay.
Folks, when you enter a listing into the MLS, Guess how long it stays there? And it sells. Let's just say it sells.
Okay.
Your house sells. You go off to some other place. How long does it stay there?
Permanently, I believe.
Permanently. We're talking decades. And we routinely pull out old information from decades ago and compare it to now.
This has opened up a Pandora's box. See, I told you this was going to be an onion when you start peeling things back.
Well, we can turn it into a rose.
Let's turn it into a rose.
Okay.
So, again, who controls access to the listing information? Who owns the listing data once it's on the MLS? You're kind of, if you want to play the game, you kind of need to use it.
You need mandatory. Has to be.
And the questions remain controversial about who gets the money, how the money transfers, is there supposed to be compensation back and forth? Where does that information, because now it's not just about money, it's about data and privacy as well. There's a whole lot of things all looped in together.
There's a whole lot of things, but the only thing that the consumer needs to know is this. The seller is in control.
Okay.
The seller, the owner of the real estate, is in control of what happens when they multiple list their property.
As long as there's still that ability, the question then comes, all right, well, what happens? What happens now? We're in 2026. We've just had some changes not too long ago. So the MLS is still the largest cooperative real estate marketplace ever created, but, well, what's next for the MLS? Well, we're going to dive into a little bit of that when we come back to wrap things up on this edition of the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour on News Radio WHAM 1180. Stand by. We'll be right back. I'm Joel LaMonaco, along with Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com, and this is the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. We are talking about the MLS this month. Oh, and by the way, if you think this conversation has dug you down a rabbit hole, next month on the Truth from Ruth, we're going to be talking about one of the most misunderstood subjects of all of real estate, New York State agency law. If you think the MLS is a tangled web, you are not going to believe what we get into next month and how it impacts all of us who live here in this state and wind up doing transactions. So next month on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour, New York State agency law, one of the most misunderstood subjects in all of real estate.
We're going to make it easy.
We're going to try to.
It's
By the way,
very easy,
if
folks.
you want to re-listen to this episode and other past shows, go to thetruthfromruth.com, and that's where we put all that stuff so that you can go back and re-listen at your leisure, share it with somebody who might need to know some information, or just reach out to Ruth and her team at diggin4deals.com. The MLS is still in existence. It has been in existence since the late 1800s. It's a century and a half almost of service. So it still exists. A private entity that was started within the industry of real estate to be able to consolidate information to the benefit of those who are buying and selling property. So the government has been involved. It is a non-government agency, but there have been challenges that have made it all the way through the justice system. This started about 20 years ago or so in the mid to late 2000s around the housing crash of that time. Then there was another DOJ battle about 2 years ago. So the MLS still exists. So there are some things that haven't changed as a result of all of the litigation that has happened around this.
And it has evolved into one of the most detailed and expose databases.
Okay.
Incredible amount of information. I sat here just this week listing a piece of property, and takes me all day to do it.
Wow.
And then all those beautiful photographs, with the wide angle lenses, folks.
Yep,
and
and
all
the drone
that,
shots and everything else.
And we're talking heavy duty, day at work.
Okay. So the MLS still exists. Listings are still a cooperative effort among people who are brokers. Properties are still shared. So
Yes.
This is why you are able to see properties in your town and across a region or across a state or across the country. Compensation discussions moved elsewhere, though.
Mandatory.
Mandatory compensation.
Was forced
okay,
to move elsewhere.
They were forced into that. But what didn't change with the MLS? Well, the seller still wants maximum exposure. They still want to get in front. They still want qualified buyers and competitive offers and competition.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, folks.
And skilled representation.
Marketing.
And they want the person who is representing them on either side of the equation to have the maximum amount of information necessary to be able to maximize that transaction for them.
Yes.
And the buyer still wants to have access to inventory, not just what they can see when they drive through a neighborhood. They want to know where everything is available.
What's wrong with choices?
And
I think it's a good thing.
And they want to have advice and advocacy as well to be able to know that they're getting the best deal.
Exactly.
In whatever transaction that they're making. So let's just bring it all down to what you and the team do with all of this information. At Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals, your philosophy is still kind of straightforward and still really easy to follow.
Maximum competition, marketing, good marketing, great representation.
And you're a seller's agent. We've said this before when we talked real estate here on the show. Your duty is to represent the seller's interest. You're utilizing the MLS for what it is intended for.
As a tool
to get that piece of property in a modern era, a digital era, showcased and detailed to the best of your abilities to attract the right sellers and multiple buyers to that property to increase competition and increase return for your seller.
And then negotiate a purchase and sale agreement.
To handle everything from start to finish.
Right, so that when it goes to the seller's attorney and the buyer's attorney, it's wrapped up in a nice little pretty ribbon, and all they have to do is go to closing.
The MLS started over 140 years ago. It was proprietary. It was held in, I'm not going to say held in secret, but held by those who were limited in access to it. It started handwritten. It became a printed book, which continued up until Miss Ruth's early career in the 80s. They were delivering books.
Phone books.
Then computers came.
Yes.
Then internet portals. Then looky-loos on phones at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. I wonder what that house down the road looks like. And in today's rapidly changing marketplace, one principle remains remarkably constant, though everything has changed, and it has changed rapidly since the internet age, so over the last 30 to 40 years. One thing, though, remains very constant. Represent your seller. Cooperate with other brokers. You're in this together.
True.
You are in this together.
Yes, we are.
To find the best buyer and benefit your seller.
Correct.
At the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. We've really just scratched the surface about all the legal wranglings and about where everything goes. And when money gets involved, things get complicated, right, Miss Ruth?
Well, one last thing. Here it is. It's not what you know in real estate that counts. It's who you know.
And if you want to get to know the team at Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com, you can go to Diggin for Deals, DIGGIN, for deals.com. You can see how Ruth and her team utilize the services of the MLS, utilize their experience, utilize their marketing acumen to be able to market to the right buyers, whether it's a piece of property, whether it's a house, whether it's land, business, equipment, collections, whatever it is that has value to maximize for a seller. That is what Ruth and the team do on a variety of levels. Check out what they have going on at digginfordeals.com. If you want to listen to this show again, or you want to keep up on what's happening with the show, okay, because next month we're going to be bringing it down. We talked nationally. MLS is a national service. Handles all over the country. You can be in New York and look at listings in California if you want. MLS warehouses, all of that. We're going to bring it down to New York State, and we're going to talk about New York State agency law and how that impacts real estate in our neck of the woods. So if you want to keep up on what Miss Ruth has going on, thetruthfromruth.com is where you do that. That's where all of these shows go to live after they have aired here on News Radio WHAM 1180. You can always go and listen to them again. Follow them on the socials as well so you know what's going on there. And Ms. Ruth, thank you very much for taking us down this rabbit hole. I'm very interested in this right now, and maybe we'll have a future conversation about some of the finer points that have really changed the MLS and changed your business over the last 40 years or so.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you. This is what she wants to do. She wants to educate you, because an educated consumer is a good consumer, both on whether you're selling or whether you're buying. An educated consumer is the best kind of consumer. I'm Joe LaMonaco. Thank you so much for spending time with us this week. We will see you again next time on another Truth from Ruth Radio Hour on News Radio WHAM 1180.